Thank you so much for coming. Is the voice picking up all right?
Yes.
Good. Frederick Ashton, as many of you know, choreographed Romeo and Juliet for the Royal Danish Ballet in 1955. This was before the Bolshoi had ever brought their famous production of Romeo with Galina Jolanova to the West. It's possible that Ashton had seen it, the film of it, but he didn't know it well, and Peter I think he never saw it. We've got lots of details to ask, and let's bring straight on tonight's first star, Peter Schaufuss. All of this was a member of the original staff. Please take a seat here.
I did that because I asked Sir Fred, and he said no. Well, we sit down, we carry on. Just so I wasn't interrupting him, but I didn't want to
Peter, there, in the Ashton Romeo, and you will see it in the film we're going to show, the nurse had a page, and we just see the page with her in Act 2. Peter was the original page.
No, I would love to say I was. It wasn't. Who you're going to see in the film was a very famous dancer in Denmark. You wouldn't know him, but he was a super famous dancer. Dinna will know, she's sitting there. He was called Jørgen Madsen. He's the one you're going to see in the very first clip. And then there's a couple of other boys, which I don't know the names of. I wasn't the page before 1960. I know I might look older than that, but I wasn't the page before 1960.
Oh, I see. Thank you. It was, however, the Romeo a kind of Schaufuss family industry, because your mother, whose name I found quite hard to pronounce, give me,
Mona Vangsø.
Vangsø.
Yeah.
Was Juliet.
She was Juliet, yes.
And your father, Frank Schaufuss, was Mercutio.
Correct.
And then you stepped up after 2 years into the role of the page.
Indeed, after 5 years, yes.
And then 30 years later, you were Romeo.
I was in the flag dance when I was 16 on the American tour in 1965. And I was actually in the last performance, which was at the State Theatre in December 1965. State Theatre in New York.
So this Royal Danish Romeo was created in 1955. It stayed in repertory for 10 years. The company then danced it in New York at the fairly new New York State Theatre, Balanchine's Theatre. And then it was taken out of repertory and forgotten by many people, but not by some. When I first went to Copenhagen, I had read about it in David Vaughan's indispensable book on Ashton, which is probably on the shelves of many of you. And in 1979, I went to Copenhagen for the great Bonneville Festival of that year, when I first saw Dinna Bjorn dance, a great event. Amid this amazingly crowded schedule, her father, Niels Bjørn Larsen, and David Vaughan had worked how all the critics who were spare that night could watch, I forget where, the film that he had made, which you're going to see. Niels Bjørn Larsen had been the director of the Royal Danish Ballet. He had also danced the role of Tybalt in the original Ashton production. He was the one who had invited Ashton to come to stage this Romeo, the first Western Romeo, really. Looked after it when Ashton wasn't there. He was the ballet master in charge, and filmed. And what the Romeo you're going to see in part 2 of tonight, our second part's conversation, is sometimes shows you 3 different casts. It's a real rehearsal film, so you'll see this cast and that cast. Sometimes you're missing little bits. Bruno and I will try to talk you through it. Anyway, Niels Bjørn Larsen showed it in 1979 in Copenhagen. It was, I think I was the only British critic there. There are lots of American critics there. As Ashton always said, I'm better appreciated in New York, and it felt like that last night. All this audience of critics were saying, we want it back, we want it now. The years passed, and I suppose my first question to you is, how did you, 6 years after that event, come to get Ashton to stage the Romeo? Was it because Niels Bjørn Larsen put the idea to you, or Ashton, or who?
I had actually done the balcony scene in 1972 with Gay Fulton at a gala. That's where we were testing the waters. And Niels came over to stage it for us. So we knew we could put it back on stage. It was my idea to put it, but it couldn't have been done without Niels. So you know, he was very much in on it. We also managed to show Ashton the movie, like in 1982, 3 years before, or 2 years before I actually became director. So we were sort of working on it, so to speak. And I remember going to his house and saying, you know, I'm director, how can I do it? And he said, yes, my dear boy, you can do it. So we did it, yeah. But we could not have done it without else.
How did you get to know Ashton? I had seen you here in 1979 dancing 2 roles in La Fille Margade with the Canadians. You did both Colas and Alain. Was that when Ashton and you first became
No. When he came for Romeo and Juliet, I was like 6 years old, and he used to come for dinner in our home. So I've known him my whole life, really. And whenever we went and the Royal Ballet was performing somewhere, you know, my parents would just go backstage and Ashton would give us tickets and stuff like that. So it was very much a family affair. So I've known him my whole life.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, your mother was not the #1 ballerina in Denmark at the time, and some people were offended that he hadn't chosen, I've forgotten the famous sylph of the day.
I think that's wrong. I think there was 4 major ballerinas there. Yeah. Dinner, correct me if I'm wrong. Kirsten Rauner, Margrethe Scherner, Mona Vangsel, and who was the other one? Inge Sand.
I was thinking Margrethe Scherner. I had heard, maybe wrongly,
Yeah.
that many people thought she would be the ideal Juliet, and Ashton surprised people by giving it to your mother.
I think there might have been some politics. But,
You're surprised.
I don't think he was ever in doubt. But there was another problem, which I'll tell you about. My father desperately wanted to do Romeo. And Ashton stayed at the Hotel Angleterre across from the Royal Theatre. And my father would almost every morning would come and knock on his door and ask him, can I not do Romeo? And he said, no, you're not going to do Romeo, Frank, but I will do the best Mercutio that was ever done. He could say that because there was only done one, that was the Ashton one at that time. But if you do know this particular version of Mercutio, there's more dancing from Mercutio, and that was because to make it up to my father that he didn't pick him for Romeo. I think he was absolutely right not picking him for Romeo, because Henning Kongstad, which was very young, was an absolutely fantastic Romeo. But there was other Romeos as well, and it shows you a little bit about the caliber of dancers that the Danish Ballet had at that time. There was Flemming Flint was doing Romeo too. Erik Bruhn was doing Romeo as well. And you know, Flemming Flint with Benvolio on the first night and stuff like that. And I've actually, because Dinna is being authentic a little bit later, showing us the original film. So I thought, you know, what can I do to kind of be a bit authentic? So I've actually brought 2 of the original costumes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And you're going to be allowed to touch it. This is actually Erik Bruhn's costume. Yeah. Now you hold it in front, and this
so
is
few
Flemming
costumes
Flint's.
in my life.
This is Flemming Flint's. And if you feel it a bit, that one wasn't cleaned very well. You're still stiff from being sweaty. That is the original costume. So I brought them just for you to see them, that they do exist. I don't have my mother's costume, and I don't have Henning Kongstad's costume or my dad's, but I have these 2. So. And since I just lived down the road, I thought I'd bring them up. You can all come and touch them afterwards.
And one curious surprise, Ashton could be more flexible than we sometimes think in casting. We sometimes think he chose that kind of a dancer, and we must always choose that kind of a dancer later on. But your mother was, I think, in her 30s when she created Juliet.
I was. Excuse me, she was 36, believe it or not.
And Henning Kongstad was only 20? As Romeo?
I think it was 21, 22. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think probably 21.
21.
Yeah. But you know, how old was Fontaine when she did Macmillan?
No,
Romeo and Juliet?
no.
She was 51, I think.
But my point about
So my mother was young compared to
my point of flexibility is 30 years later he thought the other way around, because you are now in your 30s doing Romeo. You were the first cast Romeo with London Festival.
Yeah, you're right, yes.
And he chose, you had some whiz kids who were true kids being ballerinas at that time, and he chose Catherine Healy, who I think was 16.
Yes and no, because it was supposed to be Leanne Benjamin.
was getting
Yes.
about Leanne.
Leanne Benjamin was supposed to do the Romeo and Juliet. She was at Sadler's Wells Royal Ballet at that time, and she came secretly at night and rehearsed with me, and Ashton, and Alexander Grant was there as well. Johanna Adams was there. And that was it, and a pianist. And nobody knew about it. We rehearsed every night for 2 weeks. And she was refused to dance it by Sadler's Wells.
Yeah.
And I was told out by the Arts Council.
Oh,
Yes, they said they would pull out a grant if I was stealing dancers from the other company.
but for those of you who have read Leanne Benjamin's autobiography, there's a whole chapter about that rehearsal experience. And she said, I really learned from Ashton how you dance through the whole of your body.
And in my opinion, she should have danced the first night. She would have been absolutely fantastic. So we were in a situation, actually, we didn't really have a Juliet that Freddie liked. So in came Kathy Healy, an American whiz kid, a skating princess. They could do phenomenal things. She was actually only 15 when she danced with us the first time.
Yeah.
I think she was 16 when she did Juliet. And he chose her for several reasons, because she had star quality, she was box office, and she was musical. Simple as that.
Right.
I mean, he hated people that were dancers that were unmusical. And she was very musical, but it was, I didn't really feel it awkward at the time, but it was, thinking back on it, it was a little bit awkward, dancing with a 16-year-old Juliet and being 30, whatever it was, 4 or 5 or something.
It was very curious watching her, because she didn't seem that first year. She only danced it 1 year with you.
Yeah.
She didn't quite seem spontaneous, but she did everything, as you say, so on the music, and you saw the point of every move. And if you quickly did it with 2 or 3 other casts, and with each other cast I thought, oh, I'm missing that little thing that only Healy seems to know.
There was one more I can reveal in this little meeting. It's an exclusive. Macaulay was supposed to dance it as well, but she had a bad knee and she couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was one of the options.
Right.
But yeah, we settled Kathy Healy.
And you later did get Macaulay to work with you for apparitions.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, we did that. Yeah. But she was really having a bad knee for a full length like that.
You remember so vividly, I imagine, what it was like getting Ashton and his colleagues to stage it on English National or London Festival dances. When you think about it now, to what degree does it remain a Danish ballet, to do with Bonneville or whatever Danish technique and style?
In the choreography, you can't change the choreography. The choreography was done on Danish trained dancers, and it's really very, very hard. Done in 1955, we've come a long way technically, we should think. But when I go around and I teach the ballet somewhere else, the dancers are struggling. They find it really hard. I mean, seriously hard. And Patrick will tell you a little bit later how hard it actually is. He's sitting down there. He'll show you the Paris thing. But I mean, he was magnificent at it. But it really, really is very hard. And I think it's because the Danish, particularly the men, had a very, very strong technique. They could do everything to the right and the left and stuff like that. They were bouncing, and everything is very bouncy and very, 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 very hard. I think he chose my mother. My mother was very good looking, and she didn't look 36. Together with Henning, they actually looked same age, really. He looked a little green, but she didn't look old at all. She was very, very strong, my mother, and she was very musical. And there's things that were done for her that when I do teach it somewhere else, they can't do. She was particularly good about jumping on point.
Oh, which happens in Act 3. Yeah.
All the way through, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
It's all jumps on point. And Ashton loved that, And she was a very good artist, my mother too.
Did you study ballet with your parents?
Not really, no. I didn't want to be a dancer.
How did it happen?
I wanted to be a football player. But then I got a very good teacher, Stanley Williams, when I was about 12 years old. And I thought, this is fun. When he says certain things, I can do certain things. And then it took over from the football, really. It became a hobby, really, more than anything else. And things went on from there.
Stanley Williams is, of course, one of the legendary teachers of the last century. Another Danish dancer told me really great that Stanley Williams was. It came out of Vera Volkova. Did you study with Vera Volkova?
Yeah, she was my teacher as well. There's
Ashton,
three significant teachers that I had. Do you know what before we say something else? No, Patrick won't say. There's Vera Volkova, Stanley Williams, and Hans Breno.
Yes.
Which was this very, should I say, extravagant kind of Danish teacher, which was really a Bonneville producer, director for the ballets, and he could kind of give them life. And I think he taught something that the two other teachers could not teach you. He taught you the love of dancing.
Without which?
You know, he would teach us in the morning at 9 o'clock, and he would come straight from nightclubs with big sunglasses on and scarves and stuff like that. You know? Yeah? Remember? Yes? And there was a chaiselong in the front, and he would be lying down, and he was teaching us in Bonneville, Tuesday and Thursday. Stanley Williams would be teaching us the other days, and they all go in the afternoon when we became apprentices. But you know, the Bonneville system, his pupils, after his death, made the Monday school, the Tuesday school, the Wednesday school, the Thursday school, the Friday, and the Saturday school. And he would come in straight from having partied, and he would lie down in the chaiselong with a big glass, and he would say, "The Monday school!" And we all knew what to do. And the pianist just played the Monday school, and we did all the steps. Yeah.
That connects to Ashton, and one of Peggy's friend Prague said in the 30s she went to a ballet was making the Rambert Valentine's Eve, and she had Frederick came down up with a hangover and just wasn't watching the dance and said, "Oh, do something to warm yourself up." Peggy Van Prague was a good Cicchetti student, so she just did 20 steps and did it at Cicchetti's Wednesday's class. And Fred said, "Yes, that'll do," with his hand over his eye. He hadn't seen a thing. And she said, "You haven't been looking." He said, "Can you do it again?" And she said, "I can do it again." He said, "Right, we'll play it to the music," and change the tempo, change the abonnement, and that was the dance that he made. So hangovers can help. I do want to take questions from the floor. We don't have much more time. But I'll quickly ask you one question while people are thinking what to ask you. What changes do you remember Ashton making when he came in 1985?
Well, one significant change he made was that he made a new pas de trois for Romeo and Juliet in the second act, which is actually to the mandolin dance. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, he made that. That was created for the new production.
Right.
Also, the Paris dance wasn't changed, but he made a Paris court, which meant that Patrick was the original here in London, and there was 8 green boys behind him. So the best classical dancers in the company, because when he was in Denmark, it was basically the ballroom men that did that number. So that was a little change. It wasn't choreographically a change, but it was a production change. And then he put in some extra things for Cathy Healy, because she had this gift of turning, being an ice skater as well. She was a professional ice skater at 15, you know. And she could do certain spins, and he put that in the balcony scene, changed the couple of diagonals. He changed, he was there for 6 weeks. You know, it wasn't just he came in on the last day, and no, he was there every single day. Yeah, and he rehearsed from 12 o'clock to probably 3 o'clock or something, and then he spent the rest of the day eating sandwiches and drinking whiskey up in my office with my assistant Colin Sharp. And yeah, but he was in good form, and it wasn't just. I think it was a labor of love that he did it, and I think he was, to be honest with you, I think he was upset that it hadn't been brought to the Royal Ballet. And I think that was maybe one of the reasons why, you know, he allowed me to stage it.
You gave him a great present. In the last years of his life, he was already
Yeah,
81 or 80, coming 81 when you staged it.
I know, and then he gave me a present when he died. Fortunately, he died, but you know, he gave me the ballet. I own the ballet.
Wonderful.
So,
I've got more questions to ask, but do we have any from the floor? Please.
Which companies formed Ashton's Romeo and Juliet?
It was originally in 1985 for London Festival Ballet, which then became English National Ballet. But since Ashton's death, Peter owning it has staged it for a number of companies.
I revived it for the Royal Danish Ballet in 1996, and I did it for an old friend of mine, Ove Tordal, which is a Danish dancer, which was director in Los Angeles. We did it there in 2015, and we're doing it in Sarasota for Ian Webb's company now in March of 2024. And in the middle of it, then I have done a smaller version for my own company, just in 2 acts. And then I did a bit larger version for Ivan and Natasha at the Colosseum in 2011, which was also a 2-act version, you know, because it is a very, very big production. When we did it at ENB, we needed all 80 dancers to do it. You know, some people think it's a little production that was done for a little company in Copenhagen. It wasn't. It was, you know, the Danish ballet was the size of 80 with all the character dancers. He really used the character dancers from the Bonneville repertoire. We have a lot of good dancers in Denmark, which is older, which is a tradition in Denmark, that older dancers go on stage and they don't pantomime, they mime, they mime to the music. It becomes choreography rather than just pantomime. That's probably the most difficult thing when you go to other companies and you stage it and people start pantomiming and they don't feel it in a natural way.
Have you ever gone on to do those senior roles yourself?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I didn't know.
I've done The Monk, and I have done The Prince of Verona, which is not a very large role, but I have done that, and I've actually really quite enjoyed it. Yeah.
We're coming to the allotted end of our time, but I really have 2 quick Juliet questions, I suppose, for you, and I'm hoping you're... Well, one of them isn't a question, but it's something that didn't go into your 1985 production. When I saw Niels Bjerre Larssen's film first in 1979, there's one bit that all of you who know Month of the Country would have done what I did. As soon as it happens, you go, oh, I know that. And it's when they turn up to their wedding at Frau Lawrence's cell. Romeo comes on first, and then you see Juliet running on behind, and Romeo hides, and she comes on looking for him, and then Romeo comes up behind and takes her by the arms, and she straight away like that, and it's straight out to us, like when Rakitin does that in Month of the Country. She knows his touch, she thinks, but in Month of the Country she goes, oh, it's you, it's not the man I was thinking of. In this case, it is the man she's thinking of. You'll see it in the film. Ashton never put it in your production. I presume he was thinking, they'll all think I repeat it from Month of the Country.
I think Henning Krumst and my mother were very, very good artists, coming out of the Danish Bonneville repertoire, where everybody had to really act so well. And I think maybe that was the reason why it wasn't really here. I don't think it was from lack of trying, and I think he would have said, had he. There's a moment like that from a film, and I don't know if Fred had seen that film. It was a James Dean film, The Giant. There's a moment in that film where Rock Hudson comes up behind Liz Taylor. Go home and see the film. And she feels him. And it's just like the Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, how interesting.
The film is was shot in 1954. I'm wondering if Fred saw that.
I bet.
Maybe not.
Fred went to the movies. So
but it's one of the great moments in movies, and obviously for you it was one of the great moments in ballet.
Yes. Oh, how interesting.
And I will remember when we do it in Sarasota, we will emphasize it. So when you come and see it, you will go, that's for me.
There's a little moment that the Sarasota company put back in patineur because I knew about the original of that, so I'm very proud. Just one last question.
We had
It's
this
to do with
program.
one question about Juliet, and that is that I love Ashton's Romeos, and actually it's the most classical ballet Romeo. There's more classical steps than in any other, and it's the most poetic Romeo. Most Romeos, I think, follow Prokofiev's and become rather prosaic. Strong prose, great, but Ashton just keeps taking off with poetic touches here and there, which I adore. There's one thing I always think, oh, I wonder why he did that. And it's the beginning of the balcony scene, and your mother, whom we'll see, Juliet, turns her back to the audience and does something rather Anthony Tudor-like of gripping her arm behind her back and just stretching her back. And you can see she's like a cat on heat or something, but it's odd that she's holding her arm. Do you remember anything about...
Yes, of course. It's a pain of... She's supposed to show the agony and pain of love. And many of the Juliets don't do that very well. My mother does it very well, and a few other people I've seen do it very well. But that's what it is. It's really agony. You cannot live without that person you have met. It's exactly what you did.
My back's not up to it. We're going to have to end on that note, but Peter will be here for the whole...
Can I just say one more little thing, because it's when we were talking about if he had seen the film or not.
Yeah.
He hadn't seen the film.
This is the Bolshevik.
And I did ask him, how did you actually manage to do it? And he said, he only did the Romeo. His Romeo and Juliet is done by Shakespeare's text and the music. It's reading Shakespeare's text and listening to the music at home, and smoking lots of cigarettes. So there was no interference with anything else that he had seen, maybe had heard, but nothing else. That's why it's so pure, I feel, because it's just that. Every other Romeo after that is the foundation is the Bolshevik. Yeah. Any other Romeo and Juliet, but this is unique because of that.
That's so wonderful.
Yeah.
You will be here to people ask questions to you later on. Can
okay. I'm being thrown
swap
off
you?
the stage.
Yeah. And never put up the bottom. May I welcome Dinna Bjorn. I saw Dinna Bjorn when I was first watching the Royal Danish Ballet in 1979, and I think again when I returned to Copenhagen in 1992, still dancing, but now becoming also an important stager of Bonneville's ballets, an important teacher of Bonneville's technique. But we never met until last year, and I went over because I was missing Bonneville to Copenhagen, and I saw Napoli, and then 3 months later I went back to see La Sophie, and I somehow got your email address. I can't remember how, because I just said, I want to see this film that your father once showed a Romeo, do you have it? And you, bless you, you beamed it up on your computer, and we sat there side by side at your dining room table. We should sit down and talk a little before we introduce it. How often did you watch that Romeo until I turned up?
Actually, I hadn't really seen the whole of it until you turned up. But I have seen a lot. My father started when he became ballet director in Copenhagen in 1951. He started to document the whole repertoire. At that time there were no videos, and there were not really, the notation was not really like a profession yet. My father did his own notation with little stick figures, but he also filmed all the ballets. And I remember from my childhood that in the evenings, then we all had to see what he had been filming. So we saw these little clips before they were put together. So I have seen a lot of it, but I have never really seen it put together like he then did. I mean, at that time, it was this, it's a 16mm film. And then you could only film about 3 minutes with one film. And he did it with a handheld camera from different places in the theater. When it's from the front, it's actually always rehearsals, because he couldn't sit in the theater and film. And when it's performance, he was in the wings, and sometimes also up where the light loft, where he could film a little bit down there. So the film that you're going to see, I have to prepare you a little bit, because it is not a modern documentary. It is really dance history. It's in black and white, and my father was an amateur filmmaker, so sometimes it's a little too light, and sometimes it's a little too dark. And he has put it together then, like you did. He had this little machine where he could cut it, and then he was gluing it together. And sometimes he really managed that you could go from one movement into the next. Sometimes we are missing a little bit, and as Peter just was reminding me, sometimes you see this in the end of the film. There are always this little comes little bubbles on the picture to show now it's almost running out. And my father, he couldn't take that out, because you could still see the dancers also. So in between you will have these pictures where you see these little bubbles, and the dancers are still dancing. Then it's put together from actually different years. Most of it is from the 55 version with Mona Wangso and Henning Kronstam as Juliet and Romeo. But then there is also little glimpses when it came back in 60. I really think there is something of you, Peter, but we'll see from that.
When we see the page.
Yes.
I remember last year Jenna said,
Yes.
that's Peter.
I think so, but...
There's a little pointed nose, I noticed that.
And
I didn't do it before 1960. So.
No, and there is from the 60s, because that was also where Anna Lerkesen,
Indeed.
She was one of the first dancers who had not gone through the school of the Royal Danish Ballet, but was educated privately with a Latvian teacher who moved to Denmark, Edith Pfeiffer. She was married to a Dane, and she opened her private school. And Anna Lerkesen was a student from her school who entered the company in the age of 18 already, which was quite unusual at that time. She was a beautiful talent, a real true ballerina, very inspired by the Russian style. And she was doing Juliet then in 60. And her partner was another young dancer from the company, Eske Holm. So sometimes it's them. I will try, because the other thing I have to say is that the film is without sound, which is, of course, it's a little bit difficult. I think you all know the music so we can kind of hear the music. I don't think I'm going to sing all through but maybe a little bit now and then, just as if this is it. So I will comment a little bit during the film to say who are the dancers, and if there's something special I would like you to notice. The last thing to say about the film, I mean, put together of all these little bits of a few minutes, it is that because it was this film without sound, it runs a little faster. It's like the old silent movies. That's because to have more pictures per minute, I think, to save film, when there was no sound, then it looks like the dancers were really speedy sometimes. And even if they really danced quite fast and were very good at Allegro in Copenhagen, thanks to the Bonneville, I think it was not that fast. You will see it, and I think you will just get used to it in a moment. It's because we were talking about should we go and tempo change it, but then it was too much to do the whole film, and I really wanted, like you also asked me to show the whole film, because it gives you an idea of the whole production. So I think, and some sections are actually a little more the right tempo, so I don't know, it was different kind of films, and maybe it's the one that's a little later from the 60s that are a little slower. So
when we're watching,
yeah.
Can I ask, even though it's silent, can I ask you all to be as quiet as possible, because Dinna and I are going to keep up a Q&A during it, which will be recorded so we can identify dancers. Any other Danes, please join in identifying people.
I think Kirsten Simone is in this as well.
Kirsten Simone is actually in the one from 55, where she's one of the friends. She's one of Juliet's girlfriends. She did Juliet, but I don't think
We'll see as we
I don't
watch.
think we'll see her.
Dinah's also not sure whether or not in the 65 takes, it was from 1965, whether she is a friend herself or not.
I did it actually in 65 when we were in America.
You were also in the flag dance.
I had, oh yes, that was the big court ballet dance, the townspeople with the flags. We'll get to that, we can talk more about that in the little intermission, because we're going to make a little stop after the first act, because I think it's maybe kind of
So we can resume and talk a little bit about
so we
what
can
we've
just
seen.
make a little stop and talk about...
Let's go into it. We'll
yeah.
sit in the front row as we watch. But just one thing to prepare you for, in the absence of music, and which will prepare you for what we're going to see with Patrick Armand in the second part of this evening. What blew my mind more than anything when we saw the 1985 Romeo for English National London Festival Ballet was what Ashton did to the most famous music of all. You all know it, the dance of the Capulets, dum ba dum ba dum ba dum, with the bass music. And basically, we normally see it done like the Bolshoi, or heavily on the bass, with Capulets striding forwards. And it's dance really about the patriarchy doing this and the women obeying the men. Ashton, as I remember, I may be slightly misremembering the steps. I always get it wrong when Patrick and I are here. But Paris strides forward, and then as the strings start to go down, starts to do entrechacate, and it's the most surprising thing when you've been watching slowness in all those other Romeos, suddenly having speed, which make you hear the strings so brilliantly. I find it electrifying. I'd never met Patrick Armand. I watched him do Paris, and then I watched him do Romeo many, many times over between 1985 and 1989. When I was working in New York, he was teaching in San Francisco, and I said, I've got to meet this man who I watched do the Ashton Romeo so often. And we met at my hotel for breakfast. We sat there doing entrechats with our hands, talking. You're going to see him take it through in part 2. Now let's go through and watch Act 1.
And here we have Kjell Noack as Tybalt, Fredbjørn Bjørnson as Mercutio, and I think a young Jørn Madsen as Benvolio.
That's right.
And here comes the townspeople.
Are the townswomen wearing point shoes, or are these slippers?
These slippers there. And now this is Inge Sand. She was really a soubrette dancer. And this solo that he made for her as Rosaline is amazing.
So the Mercutio's girlfriend, or
Yes,
Lydia.
yeah.
Rosalind.
Rosalind, yes.
There was one change he made in the London production.
Yes, in London he called her Olivia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Inge Sand.
Yes.
Difficult stuff.
Double sort of basque almost.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
You can whistle that louder, Peter. You know the music.
It's a little too dark to
Amazing.
Even if the film has made her faster, she's very fast.
Yes. And then starts the fights between the Capulets and the Montagus.
Tell us when we see your father as Tybalt.
Yeah, we don't unfortunately see him very much because he was filming, so he always filmed the other
It's very
cast.
difficult. Be in two places.
So it's mostly Kjell Noack as Tybalt we will see. I think there are a few moments where he's there, I will say. And you can see the old floor. It was before there was dance floor. It's really the wooden floor
right.
we were dancing on.
Yes, I love film of old stages like that.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is Kelnoak, I think.
And Ole Fatum.
And Ole Fatum, yes. And now it's Jørn Madsen.
Is what, Benvolio? Or?
Benvolio, yes.
Uh-huh.
And there is an Aeschylus. That must be Paul Wessel, I think.
Yes.
Now, here we have Juliet, and this is Mona. So, yeah, there's a lot of
Talk
jumps
about
on
points.
point,
Yeah,
yes.
jumping on point.
Look at that point work.
When Ashton was in doubt, he would say, give me footwork, give me footwork.
Yeah.
Do you remember who the original nurse was?
Britta Cornelius Knudsen, I think.
And the original Lady Capulet?
Lillian Jensen.
Yeah, that's right. And there. Well, it's very clear. This is Lillian Jensen.
If you remember your Shakespeare, Lady Capulet
Yeah.
speaks of marriage,
Yeah.
and Juliet says, it is an honour I know not
And
of.
this is Anna Lerkesen first, and now it's Mona again.
Ah,
She's all on point, jumping
Yes.
on point.
It's amazing.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. So sweet. Then the entrance to the ball.
which is to different music. It's
Yes, yes.
And the original costumes, were they by Peter Rice or the?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And it was, he also decided.
Here we have the
London.
girlfriend. Kirsten Simone is just the one to the right here in the front.
Very, very blonde.
And there is Lord Capulet, that's Sven Erik Jensen.
Thank you.
No, this is Anna. There was just Anna Lerkesen for a short moment there as Juliet. Now it's very dark for a few moments, but it's going to be better in a moment. Here.
Is this Mona?
That was Mona, yes. And
Wheel of Fortune.
yes. Yeah, it's so nice, that choreographical pattern.
Oh, so interesting that the wheel effect occurs before the Macmillan
And
version.
here we have Henning in the middle. And I think it's Frank.
That is Frank, yeah.
Yeah. There's Mercutio to the left.
For those of you who never saw Henning Constant, he was widely thought to be the most beautiful man.
He was.
Di-da-da-da-dum. Yum bum bum. Da yum da-da-da. Ya-da-da-da-dum bum ba-dum bum ba.
Da, da, ya, da, 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 ya, da, da. Is this the same three?
There was Ole Fatum as
Yes,
Benvolio all the
yes.
way to the right. So I think it's a little later.
Yeah.
And this is Eske Holm as in the middle now as Romeo.
Would this be about
But
1960?
Yes.
Oh.
Now we are back to Henning. Henning
I
and
think
Frank.
there will be clips later of Stanley Williams.
Yes, there's also Stanley, yes,
Wow.
that's right.
Mercutio as well.
There's Mercutio, yes.
You can see that's the costume I just showed you.
Yeah.
Romeo in the
Yeah.
middle.
Their first meeting.
First meeting, yeah. That's Anna. Anna Lagerson. Same thing.
And Palmer's hands, as in the
Yeah.
Shakespeare text.
And Eske Holm as Romeo. That looked like Flemming Halby, I thought. Now, here's Kel Noack as Paris.
Here's what we were talking about.
Here we have the cat.
Just Ashton to add changes of direction in every phrase.
And then,
So it does become a dance of patriarchy because the other
Yeah.
men join in.
yes. Now it's Ole Fatum as far as I can see. That's a hard dance for those boys. Yeah.
You see what I mean about Ashton taking every excuse to make it a
Yes.
classical ballet.
Yeah. And the girlfriends of Juliet.
You think this is the original cast?
Yes. There is also Ruth Andersen and Elisabeth Enevolds, and we see them better a bit later.
It's very pure classical ballet, all this, isn't it?
Say that again?
It's very pure classical ballet, all this.
Yeah.
Lord and Lady Capulet in the middle, joining.
This is Juliet with Paris?
Yes.
Fred step.
Can almost see the music. Yeah.
And is this Mona?
It's Mona, yeah.
wonderful Ashton touch there, that she's dancing with one man, but the moment the other man, Romeo, touches her hand, the whole of her upper body changes.
And that's Mercutio with a girl. I can't see. This is Frank Schaufuss.
Your father was famous for his charm, Peter. Do you think that's a fair description?
He was a very good-looking man.
Yes.
But also, I think just sort of irresistible, and not just from his looks, but just his whole manner. Is that fair? I didn't see him dance, so that's what women told me from having watched him in the 40s. Oh, Frank Schaufuss.
Yes.
I think he knew how to sell the goods.
I'm glad to hear it. We can see 4 friends. Are there 6 friends?
There are 6, There are 6. And that's Kirsten, Simone, and Ruth Andersen, and Mette Mollerup, who also was a principal. Mette Mollerup is one of them, or 3 of them. I think also Bonde, and you see in The Last Dance. Oh, that is later. That was Lise Lacour, actually. So this is from the later version.
Lise Lacour,
yes.
gosh.
Just
Is this Henning Kronström?
Henning, yes.
See, that's a stage rehearsal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a better picture.
That was Anna Lerkersen. Now it's Mona again. This is Anna and Eske Holm now.
And when Anna Lerkersen was doing this, would this be about 1960?
It's the 60th year. And we are back now to Mona and Henning.
A year after this Romeo, Balanchine was in Copenhagen for many months looking after his wife, Tanneke Leclerc, who had polio. And he coached Henning Kronström as Apollo.
That's right.
And I think watched this Romeo and borrowed a few steps from it in some of his ballets. Ashton and Balanchine quoted from each other
That was
more
Stanley
often than
Williams.
people know. That's Lady Capulet.
Yeah.
I think that's Tove Lils.
This is Tove Lils now, yeah, it's another cast. But still Mona.
The departure from the ball.
Yes.
Another balcony.
Balcony, yeah.
That very Ashton way of folding her arms like garlands around her neck. That's one of the things I think the Balanchine borrowed.
Yeah.
But what we haven't seen is the bit I was talking about yet, where...
It's not
Yeah.
yet, it's not yet.
Oh, we'll come back to
Yeah,
it. Thank
it's
you.
not yet.
That way that their elbows are like brows together is something he also used in Onguin 3 years later, 1958. Romeo's first big solo. Something I love, which is obvious, is that Ashton thing of just they're not concentrating on their fifth positions or anything. They're just dancing with the whole of the body and eating up space.
So
And hungry for kisses.
beautiful.
Not unlike the lovers when they're together in Female Garde.
Yeah. So, it's beautiful. Oh, there's Anna again doing the same little sequence.
I love those many sudden archings of the back. They're
Yeah.
sudden and drastic.
So expressive.
And this is Anna Leckerson with...
Oh,
with
this
him,
is
or-
Mona.
Oh, Mona again,
This is
sorry.
Mona again. Yeah.
Those of you who have never seen a ballet put together from multiple cast... Oh, this is the Pavlova step, by the way.
Yeah.
That's from La Nuit, which Ashton was filmed with Pavlova. The tour jeté and then the big swirling port de bras when they're kneeling on the floor. There's a very fast hops on point as lifted. Peter, that must have been bloody hard to do the quick supported lifts.
Oh, you mean as a partner?
Yes.
I was killing you.
Isn't it?
But looks all on point with Juliet.
Yeah.
She's all point.
It looks so easy. Oh, yeah. There is
That's the end of Act 1.
Yeah, now we
Can we
are.
pause here?
Those of you who have never seen a ballet film with multiple casts, I hope you get the chance, and some of us are working on this, to see films that Victor Jessen took in New York of the Sadler's Wells Ballet.
the Royal Ballet that, as it became, and you're watching and you think, oh, there's Beryl Grey, oh, now it's Svetlana Beryosova, oh, now it's Beryl Grey, and it doesn't matter because they're all wonderful, but it's fascinating knowing which cast is which. If we can get this done, we're going to get Ashton, among other things, Swan Lake with Ashton's first 1952 divertissement, including the first 3 casts of his Neapolitan dance. Anyway, are we ready to...
Maybe we could just go down for it. I just wanted maybe books to say, well, I mean, now we're moving into the second act, and I remember, because that was one of the first things I did, and it's a really, really hard dance, dancing with the flags in the hand, and when you see, we don't have a moment stop. It was so exhausting, and well, the nickname was, we call it the flag hell, because it was really kind of hard
Some real flags.
Yes, they were, and all, I mean, it went on all the time with a lot of jumps. And then I remember, I mean, the girlfriends, of course, Juliet's friends, that was the one that I really wanted to do. And finally, in 1965, when we were in America, it was the end of a 3-month American tour, and we did Romeo and Juliet there at the State Theatre. And then finally, one of them got sick, and because I was the reserve. And then I got the chance to do for those shows at the State Theatre, one of the Juliet's
When
friends.
you were learning Romeo, the friends, was the ballet being rehearsed by your father?
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I must say also when I see this film, as Peter was saying, it's thanks to that film and my father's notations that it could be revived, because Ashton didn't really remember the choreography himself. Like, I mean, I guess most choreographers, when they have done a ballet, they go on, they create new.
It's
and
amazing how they
forget,
forget choreography.
Yes, and anyway, it was many years after, but thanks to that film, and my father, who also made notations with little stick figures, and so, and that I think that was, and I do remember also my father said that Ashton was very, I mean, he was quite astonished himself to see it again, yes, and kind of got re-inspired by his own work. The funny thing is that it's probably because Ashton had a wonderful humor also, I remember. He loved my mother, who also came in our house when I was a child, because I was 8 years old when the Romeo and Juliet had its premiere. But I remember he came in our house because he loved to hear my mother speak English, because she couldn't really speak English. But she was kind of very brave, so she just put words together that she thought, this is kind of, you must understand. And he laughed, and he thought, oh, he wanted to hear more of her speaking English. And then he was always saying, maybe as a joke, he said, well, when I got the offer to come and do something, actually my summer house needed a new roof. So that's why I came to Copenhagen to do it. So, well, thanks, I was really happy that his summer house needed a new roof, because then this fantastic ballet was created. And it's for me.
Do you still have your father's notations with the stick figures?
Yes, I do.
Where, do you know where they're going to go?
Well, I mean, yes, I know where I wanted them to go. I wanted them to go to the Royal Danish Theatre's library, but it doesn't exist anymore, which is such a shame. But it was stopped, and so now there's only the Royal Library, which, of course, I think that's where it should go. But it's a big library, and I just hope it doesn't get somewhere in a box and get forgotten. So I still have it in my apartment.
Good.
So my apartment is an archive, because I have all the things from my father's notations and films and pictures.
Visiting dinner in Copenhagen is such a joy, and after I'd been there for the first time to watch this Romeo, she showed me that on my next visit some of her father's films of Old Bourne and the other ballets. We had such a great time. Are you ready to watch Acts 2 and 3?
Yes.
Let's go back.
Yes.
So here comes the flag hill.
I'm trying to think what the music is. Here's this. Da, 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 da.
Da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. Altså,
Ah.
Yes.
Right.
It's a really, really good dance.
Yes.
It's so musical.
Yes.
Just go on a bit.
Yeah.
Well, there's an awful lot of music. And this is
And that's
Rosaline
also
again?
Bonde, yes, but it's another, I think it's Frank Schaufuss with also Bonde.
Uh-huh.
Now I think maybe it's
Inge Sand,
Inge Sand again, yeah.
I think Mette Mollerup was
And
also one
she
of the
was also
cast.
doing Rosaline, yeah. Maybe,
And Inge Sand was the first Rosalind?
yes. That's Inge Sand for sure. Yeah.
So it's a Rosalind quite unlike the Rosalind in the play.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he changed it to Livia, because it made more sense.
Right.
And that's Stanley Williams.
Oh, really?
It was
That
just
was-
a little glimpse of Stanley Williams there, yeah. Now it's Frank again.
Wonderful seeing this amount of classical dancing in the
Yeah.
piazza
Yes.
scene.
Yeah. It's a nice duet. Yeah. There we have the little
So here's the
page.
nurse with her page.
Isn't-
Which page do you think this is, Peter?
It looks, I think it's you, Pete. No, it's not. That's another. That's
That's
another
Jan Madsen
one.
when he was young. This must be the first one, this, I think.
Yeah, I think that was you.
Because
I
that was
think-
Bridget Cornelius Knudsen. I
Yeah.
think that looks more like me.
I
that
think it's
one.
you.
Really?
Yes. Yes, it is you.
So,
I haven't spotted the Fred. Oh, here it is, the Fred step. In David Vaughan's book, that's the only Fred step he mentions in the Romeo. But actually, the English National Ballet production had 4 different Fred steps. In Acts 1 and 2. And the nurse here is who?
Britta Cornelius Knudsen.
Ah. That's Henning.
That's Henning, yeah.
Wonderfully expressive arabesque he has
Yeah.
there. They're at Friar Lawrence.
Friar Lawrence, Jan Holme.
This is Henning.
Henning.
stand by for your famous moment.
Here's my moment. And I probably remembered it all wrong, but that's what I remember. I don't think any 20th century choreographer ever did such beautiful mime as Ashton.
Very, very clear.
There, that's what I remember, her running along the back. She comes on and Romeo isn't there.
Oh.
There. Yeah, now she knows straight away who it is.
Yeah.
Is that both with Mona, both those
No,
two?
it's both Mona, yeah.
Thank you. I'm so keen on your James Dean Elizabeth Taylor idea, Peter. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm going to send you the clip later tonight.
It's so sweet. Comes with the flowers.
Gorgeous.
Fabulous, really.
Who was Friar Lawrence?
Fra Lawrence Jan Holme.
Ah,
And this is now Kjell Norges Tybalt. And
And
it
that
looks
is-
like Fredbjørn, is it?
That is Fredbjørn,
Yeah.
and that's a great shame we couldn't see our two fathers
Yes.
do that on the film.
That's true.
oh my God! Your father's Mercutio and your father is Tybalt. This
Yes.
is getting incestuous.
And that was
And there was a great deal of rivalry between them, and
Really?
sometimes
Yeah.
the company thought they were going to kill each other.
I love it.
that's Eske Holm.
As Romeo,
Yeah.
trying to patch up the quarrel.
Now it's Henning. I think no, it's also Eske. I think it's Eske Holm. Yeah. That's Kjell Norgens Fredbjørn, I think. Is, yeah. That looked funny.
I was standing there for 1 second.
Yeah, it was. It looked like my father a little bit, but no.
No, it's not.
No, it's Kjell.
Because he was filming.
Yeah, yeah.
Quite refreshing to see a Romeo without
Yeah.
harlots. Or,
That's
or
Stanley
Stanley
indignant
Williams.
townswomen.
Yeah.
Oh. Even here, some steps.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's this.
You never danced Mercutio, Peter?
I did.
You did?
I did not enjoy it.
Hard?
My son enjoys it more than doing Romeo because he's been doing both roles as well. He likes Mercutio better. But I always liked Romeo better.
And am I right, I also saw your son do Paris in Los Angeles?
No, he's
Oh, I beg your pardon.
he's casted Romeo there. But he likes doing Mercutio better.
And now comes that great moment when he's stabbed, he rolls down the chairs, the stairs. And my father almost broke his elbow once.
Wow.
for that one. It was very dramatic.
And which Lady Capulet?
That's Lilian Jensen.
Lilian Jensen. That's Henning.
Henning, yeah.
And Aeschylus at the back.
Aeschylus in the back, yeah.
So the biggest business of bringing on Lady Capulet here must come from Prokofiev's score.
Yeah,
Because it's not in Shakespeare. Or it connects to what Lady Capulet says at home. Now the bedroom pas de deux.
yes.
Henning and Mona.
Yes.
So many variations on the lovelorn arabesque.
That's Anna. Now it's Mona again.
It's the first big high lift we've had, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's Anna and Eske. No? No, it's still Mona and Henning.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's as if they're quoting the balcony pas de deux, that big swirling of the upper
Yeah.
body. Body language tells you plenty. I love that use of the upper stage,
Yeah.
the curtain. Peter was talking about the wonderful Royal Danish habit of bringing on senior dancers to do the big character roles. And he pursued this with English National Ballet, not just by bringing in Danish artists, like his father and Kirsten
Ralo
Raloff
came in,
and
and
Kirsten
Niels.
Simone, but you also brought on Alexander Grant and Len Seymour.
Indeed.
that amazing thing you've just seen, it's releve passe from fifth position. If you see it on stage and those jumps onto point there, Ashton really using the weight of the dancer to show her will and her refusal to go along with Lord Capulet. The way she was to stamp down into fifth position was so thrilling. If you remember your Shakespeare, he is saying, God's blood, it makes me mad. This is Juliet alone wondering what to do.
Yeah.
And even here, Ashton working the whole body forwards and backwards from the waist. And this is all still Mona?
Yeah, it is.
Lawrence shows her the drug. Remind me who the Friar Lawrence is?
Jan Holme.
Thank you. On point even there. Wonderful.
Well, he gets it one more time. It's the same. I'll repeat.
No, it's a mime scene and it's dance at the same time. The connection between mime and dance throughout Juliet's Role in Act 3 always used to thrill me. Back to the bedroom.
Yeah.
Yes, I will marry Paris. Is that Mona?
That's Mona, yeah. And Kilnoak is Paris.
Ah, thank you. There's something cut there that I'll try to tell you about when we've finished watching.
mandolin dance.
So men do the mandolin.
Yeah.
Ah.
In the first version.
And Peter, did Fred cut this music from this bit in your production so that he could use the music elsewhere? Or he reused it?
No, because dun, 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 it is actually played on a mandolin.
Yeah.
This is actually not a mandolin instrument, although it's called the mandolin dance.
Right. So this did happen also in your production?
Indeed, yeah.
And the bridesmaids.
Yeah, we have Kirsten Simone in the middle, the blonde one in the middle
yes,
is Kirsten Simone. Ruth Andersen to the left and Mette Mollerup to the right in the front line. Elisabeth Enevoldsen behind Kirsten Simone.
All right. Elisabeth Enevoldsen.
Yeah.
Wow. Who are the two other ones at the back?
Then
Can you
it's,
see? Is it
I think
Annette Osbund?
Også Bunde to højre, to
Okay.
the right. And the last one,
It wouldn't be Annette Amang. She's too young.
no, I
isn't
think
she?
it's Elin Bauer.
Elin Bauer.
Yeah.
My mother shared dressing room with her.
Really?
She was married to Barbara Raro,
Ah.
famous Danish dancer.
That's Kirsten Simone.
Yeah. Very blonde.
Yeah.
It's the nurse who discovers her first, and then Lady Capulet.
Yeah.
Oh. Beautiful.
And now we go to the crypt.
That's the
Between-
crypt. That's the crypt, yeah. The lights being lit one by one.
Henning as Romeo.
It was hard to see who that was. I think so. That's him for sure.
One change that Ashton did make, I forgot to say when you asked me, he did put Paris in the last scene because it is in the play,
Ah.
which
Thank
he's not in there.
Was dragging herself along the floor.
Yeah. And then there is just a small glimpse of Sir Frederick Ashton himself for the curtain call that comes now. There he is. He gets flowers, and that's my father giving him flowers.
And in Julie Kavanagh's biography of Ashton, there's a story that once he came out into the foyer afterwards, and there was Igor Stravinsky. And he said, "What on earth are you doing here?" And Stravinsky said, "I'm taking you out to dinner." What Stravinsky thought of Prokofiev's score, we do not know. And I presume it was probably the first 3-act ballet made on the company after the war.
I think so, yeah. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.